Thanks, Felicia. Hey guys, happy Friday. And welcome to our Crystallized Fringe earrings class. Today is a really fun one. And I'm wearing the design. I literally have not been able to take these off. They're like my favorite pair of earrings right now. And so I'm going to give you guys a close-up view of them and show you how we made them, and then talk about ways you can expand on this idea. I think we'll just jump to the mat. I'll take these off and put them where you can see them. And thanks, Felicia. So these are very epic. They're very statement, but they're pretty lightweight and they're super sparkly. They're seasonless and adaptable, and I think they're pretty quick and easy to make too. And so what I did for kind of writing up how I made them is I wrote a little recipe. And the cool thing about having a recipe for beadwork like this is you can take something you really love and just make it in a bunch of colors. So I'm going to walk you through the recipe, and then I'm going to tempt you with some ideas, and then we're just going to walk through making one of these. So what you'll see in the handout are all the materials I used to make the Crystal AB version. And so everything's here. And so those materials are some Delicas. We're going to start with some size 11 Delicas. And then we'll work some fringe with the size 11 Czech. And then on the strands, we'll be mixing in a combination of 4mm. And forgive me, these strands usually have two. The way they're sold is with two strands, but I've used one in the case of both of these. And these are the 6mm. So there's 4 and 6mm. And I did use the AB version because I was going with pearl. This is the AB pearl in the Delicas, and all that together with the silver line sparkle really makes it pop. And so that's what these are made out of. And all of those part numbers are in the PDF. So you can find everything I used for this design there. It is on a stainless ear wire. So these are the stainless steel fishhook ear wires. And I used GoodThread. So I did use let me show you the packaging really quick. I used this color, which is the frost, or I think we're just calling it white on the website. Yeah. It's going, yeah. And so you'll find this right there on the bead wall. It's also on the website. It does come in other colors too. So it's in black and in white. So you can use make a match, whatever you'd like. All right. And then the other kind of just incidental things you'll need to have on hand are some scissors, and you might want to also have some chain nose pliers that'll help you open and close this loop on your earwire. And then I do have one little step that I do where I use a pair of round nose pliers. It's optional. You can also use other things for this step, which is it's a little step where I make the little hoop at the top pop. And I'm going to show you how to do that as we're getting going. So I mentioned there's a recipe for this. So the recipe, there's our ingredients. And then here's our mix. And this is also in the handout. I made two attachments this time because for some reason, it like printed out really tiny in the handout, and I didn't know if that'd be as easy to see. So the handout has all of the basics for how to build the brick stitch part. I've got a special way to start it. We'll go through that. And then the fringe strands, if you like the way that those are strung and suspended, all of that's here, and I'll walk you through how to turn this into fringe strands. But it's basically just strands 1 through 9. And then there's just the repeat of picking up a size 11 with the Delica 11. So that's your repeat. You would repeat it 10 times and so on. So we'll go through that. But so grab your crystals, grab your seed beads, whichever color you'd like to work with. And when I say colors, I got a little bit inspired and I started making different stuff. So I know we've got Valentine's still ahead, but I'm already thinking March too. So if you wanted to do like a St. Patty's Day and make sure you don't get pinched on St. Patrick's Day, you could go with a green and a gold. And it looks stunning in green and gold. So this is just sticking with the Delica size 11 seed bead mix. And again, you've got those 4mm bicone with the 6mm bicone. So that one is really fun. And then pop ahead into April and you might need a purple one. And this one is the one I think I'm going to demo finishing. So it's missing one strand and I've still got my string hanging out. And on this one, I used purple Delicas, and I use these really cool, like they have like a pink inside. They're really pretty. They have a depth to them. And then I grabbed this color, which is which is this one, Violet. So Violet looks like that, comes out stunning, but you don't have to stop there. You can turn this from sparkly into boho really easily by switching your bead types. So I found a Czech glass bead strand and I grabbed 2 different size 11 Tohos, and then I made another version like that. So all the counts are the same. There's no difference at all. Everything we're going to do today works 100% for all the different beads. So let's build one. And I was thinking for today, just so you can see really, really well, what do you guys think of the purple? Is that going to be easier to see than the white, or would you prefer to see it on white? So just drop your vote in the chat and I'll get my thread ready while we wait. And I am going to work with the black color today so you can see my thread really clearly. But you just want to match your thread with what you're doing. And so how much thread should I cut? You want to cut about 100 inches. And everyone's saying purple, so we're going to go with that purple there. All right. And I put to cut about 90 to 100, and that is going to be, you know, maybe just a little bit more than you need, but you need to weave in and reinforce and do stuff like that at the top loop. And so the way it works is I usually leave behind the 60 inches at the beginning, and that becomes what I'll make the fringe with later. And then I'll use that 40 inches at the top to do the stacks. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that now. Whoop. Try not to drop my beads. All right. And here we go. And I forgot to mention the needle. I'm just using a size 11 hard beading needle. I'm just going to grab that really quick. And so we don't have a really easy trick for threading with a thread that's not plasticized, you know, like how we can flatten it when it's the plasticized thread. So with this one, you just want to get the thread just right there at the tip of your fingers, and then just bring your needle to it. And if it's not going through for you, you can always try like turning it in your hand to see if one side of the needle, the side that's punched, will go through easier than the side where it punched out. So sometimes that can be helpful. All right, and so for now, all we need is our Delica. So I'm just gonna grab those really quick. And I'm thinking, I wonder if it would look better on, 1 second here. I want this to pop off of the blue here, so let's go with this color. Every day is different. I'm having a sunny snow day here. It's bright and snowy and sunny. And so my lighting is different than it was last class, but still looks pretty good. All right. So the way I start this design, let me bring the samples back over. This one will be pretty easy to see here. So the way it's built is you're going to use beads in sets of 2 stacks. So we're just going to treat 2 beads as 1 bead throughout. And to create the first laddered row, I actually do peyote stitch. And this is a tip that came from actually a student in one of our classes, to start with a peyote stitch like that. So we're going to start it with a single column, and I'll show you step by step how to do it. It saves a ton of time. It basically makes like 2 rows at the same time. So you're so close to being done. It makes it really fast. And then we'll pop that little loop out at the end there. Okay, so to start that, start with 6 Delicas. Yeah, and Cindy's saying, yeah, that was an amazing suggestion. Yeah, it was really helpful for me too. I remember that epiphany moment when I realized it would work. And it just changed my entire brick stitch life. It really did. And
Danielle?
So yeah.
Just a quick question from Lorena. She couldn't get the thread. Is it okay if she uses a Wildfire 006?
I think so. Yeah, that'll work fine. Your fringe will be will flow a little differently, but you know what? It'll be cool because it'll make your fringe kind of pop more. So your spacing at the bottom might show a little better. I think that'll work fine. And so I need 1 more bead. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here's 6. Okay. And remember, we want to leave that 60-inch tail. And so we're going to work with the top 40 inches of our thread and leave 60 inches behind. So if you want to measure that on the spot, you can do that. I usually do it after I've got my needle threaded and my beads on, I'll just measure from the bottom. We'll just go up and measure all the way to 60, 57 or so. And then just pinch that spot with your hand. And bring your needle back up through the last two beads. So we strung 6, and we're just going to bring our needle back up through the first 2 we strung, and we're headed back through them. And there we go. So here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a little pop like that. It's just a basically 2-drop peyote stitch. It's going to look just like that. So hopefully everyone's seeing that really well. And I'll just wrap the thread around my fingers and use that as a way to hold my tension. And then if you just pinch those in your hand for a second, we can start building the next rows. Sorry, the next, it's not the row, it's the column. I guess you'd call it the column. So you'll pick up 2 beads. And then we want to go back through those 2. And when you do that, you'll get your second stack of 2 for one of the rows. So they're going to look like that. And so let's just keep going. Let's pinch it in our fingers to hold everything in place. And we'll build another. We're going for a total of 9 beads on the bottom row. And you'll notice that your thread's exiting from, so your tail thread will be exiting from what will become the top row. So that row will have 8 stacks of 2. And this one that's got 3 currently, we're going to build this out till there's 9. So picking up 2 more. Go back through the last 2. Oops. This mat is really sticky. So everything's kind of sticking to it. And if this happens to you, it just happened to me. It's probably a good thing I can show that. In order to fix it, grab the thread that's coming out of the last one, tighten everything up again, hold it, and pull the other one through. And everything should pop right back into place for you. And that does happen a lot, especially since my hands are really dry for winter and they're catching on my fabrics a lot. I need to go have like a spa day or something. All right, and so I'm still just picking up 2 beads, and then I'm just going back through what's essentially the up bead in the up position here. So you just hold it like that. And there we go. So there's 4. And now I've got 5 on the bottom. And I'm going to turn and bring on these 2. So I'm really just counting, I'm counting how many beads I've got going on the bottom. That's the one I'm just building along with. The top will just happen naturally, count-wise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's number 7. So what do you guys think of this start? I love this start for brick stitch. It's nice. It's like this alternative to doing a ladder stitch row. For anyone who's done the ladders before, you get a really thick, kind of like a lot of the thread filling the beads. By the time you get to your brick stitch part, got some really full beads at the end there. This way is so much easier. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So almost there. And here we are with number 9 coming up from the bottom. All right. So there's the first 2 rows. And yes, this Johnny's asking, can this be used to start single bead? Yeah, this works for single bead. double, even triple stacks, anything. A single column peyote is all we're doing here. And so whatever your pattern calls for, even if it's like a super complex brick stitch pattern, you just go ahead and identify your widest row and then pick a row above or below it. And if, as long as it's one bead off, it'll work. If it's got something that jets out more than one bead, then you have to ladder just that part. But that's also, you can figure that out in your pattern as you're going and stuff. So from where we are here, I'm going to do one thing before I carry on. I'm going to grab another needle. And I have one just sitting aside here ready to go, I believe. And I'm going to use that needle on the tail just really quick. I want to make it tighter. So because we did this peyote stitch start, we want to move our tail. And remember, this tail is going to become our fringe. So we're going to move it down over here. And in the process, we'll reinforce this edge so that when we come back over doing our brick stitch, it will be tight when we get there. Because I do find if you don't do this step that when you get to the last thread bridge, and I'll explain thread bridge in a minute, but when you get to the last one and you try to go under it, it actually loosens up everything on this side. So doing this step will save you from that happening, and also puts your thread where you need it to be for when you're going to start your fringe. So just turn and go down through this bead. And that's just the adjacent bead to the one I was exiting. And again, this is the tail we're working with right now, just for a minute. And keep in mind, you want it headed this way. So we're going to have to do a little turn. So what I do is we'll go down through this third one in. So that's the third one in from the edge. And then turn, come up through the second one, pull tight, and then we turn and go down through the edge. And so we're right where we want to be on that side. And you can set this aside and keep the needle on it if you want, or just get the needle to go, into the mat for a minute. All right, so we've got our tail ready to do fringe later. And now we're going to just finish building the brick stitch top. So I mentioned earlier thread bridges. So thread bridges, we created those when we were doing all of our stitching, and they look like that. So to go under a thread bridge, you just bring your needle underneath the thread that connects one bead to the next. And we're going to be working in the second thread bridge for starting this row. I'm doing it this way so your thread doesn't show on the side. It's not the only way to start. Sometimes I'll start with just one, but let's go ahead and pick up 4 beads. So that's going to be, 2 stacks. And skipping the first thread bridge, go under the second. So we want to go under that one. Pull tight. And your beads will do something like that. You want to just come up through the last 2. So bring your needle up through the last 2 of those 4 that we had. And you'll get something that looks like that. And if you like that, how it looks right there, that's great. If you want to be super perfectionist and make it really pop side by side, I personally think it looks great both ways. I've seen some designers where they have this little roll. Do you see how these 2 beads are just doing a little roll to the side? That looks nice because it's all going to taper up like this. But if you were doing a pattern where you wanted it to be, really parallel, it's super easy to fix. All you got to do is come down through that second set there. Just that little first set in the row. There we go. So I just came down through those 2 beads right there. And you can grab the thread bridge that is above the first stack. So the easiest way to do that, because keep in mind they're covered up, is just kind of bring your needle in between. So here we are going down through these 2. If you want to bring your needle behind and in between, it's like through those 2 beads that are below it, you'll catch the thread bridge that way, even without being able to see it. Pull down. And it'll already start to look a little tighter for you. And it'll get perfect when you come back up through those inner 2. And that is a trick that I, of course, learned that a lot of what I know from lots of other beaders, and this trick is a lifesaver. Can make all the beads just kind of pop right into place. So there's those first two. All we got to do is do the rest of the row. So I'm going to pick up two more beads. And this time we're going to go under the third thread bridge. I'm going to try to get that to focus. So there's the third one. And pull through and go up. So I'm just going to finish the row just like that. Cool thing is every row will get shorter that we do. And we'll start with two beads. We'll go under. And so we'll build this whole top together. It won't take very long. So you'll get to see that little starting step a couple of times. So we're working on row 3 right now. Rows 3 through 7 are all worked exactly the same way. With just this pick up two beads, go under the next thread bridge, come up through the two beads. A couple of notes that I can give as I'm working. It's not the end of the world, but it's probably helpful not to puncture your thread. And here's why. If you make a mistake and you need to pull it out, it's easier if the thread hasn't been punctured when you're going through it. And the other thing I've noticed is you're less likely to see your thread at the seams if we didn't do any punctures. And one way to tell you didn't puncture it, which the place where it gets poked through is this part right here. So when you're going back to the bead, often you'll snag the thread and it won't move. But if you've avoided snagging it, you should be able to pull it like that. And no matter how far you pull it, it comes right back into place. It's one of the most like satisfying brick stitch moments is when it just pops right back like that. So let's do the next row. And to start, we're going to do 4. So 3, 4. I get 4 beads there. And we're going to go under the second thread bridge. And then up through those 2 beads there. And so again, you can go back through if you like and reinforce. And I do that all kind of in one swoop. I get down through those 2 and get myself under that first thread bridge. You'll get there too. When you start working on it, your needle will just go where you want it to. And you can even spin it a little bit like that, just kind of make the thread all just settle and you get that nice little pop there. There's 2 more. Oop. And next thread bridge. So we'll just keep going. Let me know if you guys have any questions about the brick stitch part. I'm just gonna keep going stitching along. Ooh, I thought that was a knot. We're good. It's not a knot. It was just a little tangled. Always good to go slow. And it's nice. This one doesn't have a pattern, so we can just leisurely add our beads. If you were following a pattern, you would probably have a ruler and a little chart next to you. But this is a great beginner one because we're just going to build the same color. And I actually find it really just really aesthetically pleasing to combine all one color in a design like with the crystals because it makes the crystal the sparkle, the focus, instead of the pattern. And then also just creating it is faster and easier because you're not worried about getting the stripe right or like getting the animal to be the center, like if you're doing a really complex pattern or something. So there's my next row. I'm just going back through it to give it that pop. And I'm speeding up a little bit because I'm not seeing any questions. So I'm assuming you guys got this part, but do let me know if you don't.
Danielle, I hope you're not feeling alone in your studio.
No, I'm okay. Just making sure I'm not going too fast because
Yes.
I'm
No, I'm checking in to say hello and all is well.
all's well. All right. You guys got this. So we'll speed up just a little. I expected more work stitch questions, so I left the whole thing to demo, but it's actually almost done now. Again, here's that second thread bridge. Oh, thanks, Sharon. Super fun. So here's that swoopy thing, getting under that first thread bridge there. And I like to spin them just like that, just to make sure all the thread hides underneath when I'm doing that next add. So this is our last row before the end. We just have a stack of 3 to go after this.
And Danielle, I think she's probably answered her own question, but Marjorie was wondering if she didn't want the top portion to be as tall, would she just start with a shorter base?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can work this with any count you want, really. And then if you wanted to keep the same patterns, I'll show you when we get to the fringe. But all you would need to do is maybe just cut the edges off. And you could work it starting instead of with 9, you could start with 7. 7
Thanks,
being
Danielle.
count there at the bottom. Yeah. So customizable and really easy to customize because we don't have any pattern. We're just working one solid and it makes it so much easier to customize. And this is my last row. So I'm just doing the same thing we've been doing. Here's that trick one last time. Going back down. And then just come around and just, if you go between those beads, it puts you right under it. So you can do that all in one swoop. All right, and here's our last little stack. Okay, so some fun stuff coming up. We're going to create the loop for the ear wire. I did get an email question about wire guardians. And yeah, you can totally use a wire guardian here if you want. I think I was just having a moment of style when I decided to use the beads because I wanted the colors. In the case of the crystal, I was really loving that the ear wire is like hooked into the snow. That was what I was feeling in that moment, but there was no other real reason for that. Like if you really like to do wire guardian, it's really secure. So absolutely go for that if you have them handy and you want to use those. But what I did on this is I just picked up 4 Delicas. So let's get those. And jump over your middle one and go through the other side. And so there's our loop. And it's not going to look pretty just yet because we're going to reinforce it a few times. But to reinforce it, all you need to do is make a turn. And you remember how when we were going under the thread bridge, we were using that trick of just going in between 2 beads. You just pop your needle in between the beads and pull through and then up. And you've got that thread bridge without even having to see it. Come up through these 2 and continue all the way around the little rainbow of 4 beads we added. And I'm still being careful not to puncture the thread. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's not tightened yet. And if I puncture it, it won't be as easy for me to tighten. But there we go. So with every thread pass, you get a little more pop. Let's do one more. Turn and come up. And there we go. So now all we have left to do is weave this in, and then we can go to our fringe. So super fast. This is a really, really quick one. Oops, it looks like I accidentally went through an extra bead there. Let me get back out of that. I'm going to use the not needly side for that. There we go. I don't want to snag it. And this is weaving in, so just any path you'd like, you can choose. I'm just going through whichever bead is either left or right below the one I'm coming out of. I'm just going to keep going. And I'm going to make a turn just for security for the weave in. So again, get that tail out of the way over there. So let's just come up through one side here. One more. Yeah, maybe one more. And there's another turn, and I'm spinning it to make that thread hide. So it's pretty much overlapped itself a couple times, gone through a couple times, and we can trim it. If you want to leave your, like I have a lot of working thread left. If you want to leave it in place, just in case you need it for your fringe, you can, or you can go ahead and trim it. It's also super easy to add thread. The way that I just showed for weaving that in is the same way you would add a new strand. And because this is just an area that we don't mind if it stays strong, we don't have to have that concern about it not being flowy. So you don't have to worry if you weave in again over a spot where you've already, done some weaving in. That should be just fine. So you see how that's kind of collapsed at the top? I want to show you a little trick really quick. I'm going to get some round nose pliers. And what you want to do is just take the round nose pliers and pop them in that little spot there. This is cool if you're going to do some photography and also right before you put the ear wire on to make it just look really cool. And you can do that even after you've got the ear wire on there just to kind of make it pop out. But once you've got the ear wire on, it kind of holds it in place too. So, but if you're someone who's photographing your work, that one little step can make your picture just really look really perfect. So you can try that if you like it. And now it's fringe time. Okay, so how to read this fringe chart. The way it looks here is I've got my base, and we've got 9 spots for fringe. And this handy dandy chart shows you how many beads to string each one. And what I do when I'm working on it is I'll actually cover up the one that I finished, and I'll just keep working along, covering up the one I finished until I get to the end. And then if you're going to step away from your work, that way you can remember, oh, and you can always count it, but it's kind of nice because you can even leave a little reminder of where you were if you have to stop mid-strand and say, hey, I was at this spot right here. Makes it easy because I've never been able to finish one in one swoop. I always get interrupted and I have to like go do something else, come back. But so you always know where you are. And let's get some crystals. I have a little bag here ready to go. And I'm going to need more Delicas. So let's do something different here. I'm going to bring this down. And just up here off the camera, I'm going to put those crystals, and then let's get some more of these. More Delicas. And then last but not least, I've got these really beautiful 11 and they're going to become kind of like our A bead. Think of it as like the way the stringing order is, it's a repeat of S11, D11, S11. So I'm putting the S11s first over there, just for my motor memory, so my hands know where to go. And let's get my needle and my tail. So I made my tail a little shorter for the demo, just so I am not going off camera for a really long length, but this tail would be about 60 inches long. it can be a little unwieldy to work with that kind of length. So what you can do is you can bring it down like that and fold it over as you're working. And then as it gets shorter, just kind of add your length that way by pulling it up. And let's go to the pattern. So we're going to string 10 repeats of S11, D11. So let's start with that. And so I usually use the D as my count. So we'll go something like this. Let me bring it down a little more. Okay. So I would go, that would be 1. So I use my Delica as my counting bead. And that would be 2. There's 3, 4, there's 5, 6, and then 8. All right, so there's 10. And so I started with S11 and then D11, and I did that 10 times. Just got that one on there. And then we want to go from that and add one more S11. And from there, a B4. And so the B4 is a Bicone 4, so 4mm Bicone. And then after that, we'll jump right into repeating S11, D11 5 times. So here's our Bicone. Just gonna slide that up. There's 1, 2, and 5. So that one's all good. And we finished that. So all we have left to do is the 1 S11, and there's this embellishment. So this is the bottom part where we're just gonna add a 4mm Bicone, 6mm, 4mm, and then an S11. And so we need 1 S11 and this embellishment. And this is why I think wildfire will work fine, because this is gonna put a lot of weight on there. So that'll give you the sway you need to make the wildfire move a little bit more. After you've got that, the last thing on every strand is 1 S11. That's our turning bead. Yeah, this one, sorry if I've confused everyone. I made it bigger because this is one, at least on my printer, because I print in booklet format. See, I print my PDFs as booklet. I just, and for some reason my printer was out of ink and it's making everything, apologies, it's making everything yellow, but see how tiny that, I just didn't think I could show that very well. So this was the second attachment, and it was just a blown up version of that same thing. You can also take this one and you can screen flip it out and just make it bigger too to print it, or not print in booklet, which is I printed multi-page, so it's 2 pages per one sheet. If you print it full screen, full length page, you'll be able to read that, no problem. Yeah, and so here's my turning bead, S11 turning bead. Whoop. One thing that happens if I'm like wearing hand lotion or something is my hands will stick to my beads and then just like fling them across the room. So I'm like, no, I'm hoping that doesn't happen tonight or today. But there's 1 strand. So that one's all set. So there's a little trick for fringe that I like to do. And you just need to skip that last bead. So that's our turning bead. And then just start heading up through all the beads. And try to be really careful not to miss any. And that can be tricky when you get to the little, size 11 beads. But one way you can test your work is if you lift it up and none of those beads fall down when you do that, then you got them on the needle. If they move, then you didn't quite catch them all. So I just did one little section. Let's keep going. And it looks like I caught all those beads and none of them are hanging down. And here's where we are. We exited there. You want to just go back through that same stack of 2, the one that you're exiting from. Just want to go back through it. And before you pull everything tight here, pinch that little S11 at the bottom. That's the turning bead that we had. Just want to pinch that in your fingers and then pull that all through like that while holding this bead. And then lay it down and then just kind of like very gently give it a little tug. And you'll have perfect tension in your fringe. So the only thing you got to do next is turn. So I'm going to turn and go down through the next set. So we came up through here and I'm just bringing that needle down through here. And when you make that turn, go ahead and take the beads in your hand and just spin them again. And that will make sure that you can't see the thread there. And then just do that same thing again. String all those beads, come back up through them. This part takes a little bit of time, but if you follow along and, just, keeping track of your counts as you go, it does actually go pretty fast. And you just want to keep going. So I'm going to use a fast forward to one that is already ready, except for its last strand. So all I did was I finished my fringe following that chart, the pattern. So you'd string that repeat, the bicone, string the number of repeats, and it changes as you go. This section, the repeat number count here gets shorter and shorter and shorter as you go. And that's what makes that little triangle effect. It's a lot easier to see on this design here. You see how it kind of, oh, and lay your beads out as you're working. And you'll spot errors easier when you're still able to pull it back out and fix it versus at the end. So after every strand that I create, I'll lay it out and look at it and just make sure something didn't go wrong for me. But the goal is like you'll have this little triangle coming up. It's really pretty. And then also I'm betting a lot of you guys are already thinking, hey, I could take this same concept and just change my counts. Like if you wanted this to taper down into a point, you would just reverse the order. So instead of doing, you could have it point in a different direction. So lots of ways you can take and make this your own and customize it. And if you like this, you can stick with that and it still looks really cool. Use any beads you want. These little beautiful little glass beads are so fun. And then when it hangs, it looks really cool, really kind of like dangly. So let's finish up the next one here. Let's pretend we strung it, went back up. Again, you just make that little turn at the top. And before you know it, you will have all your strands done. We'll just get this one on here. There we go. Okay, so I'm back in my last one. So I'm working this one now. And it's just going to be another repeat of 10. So we'll grab one. Okay, so there's 5. And let's grab 5 more for a total of 10. There's 5. We need our our S11 that kind of just hugs the bicone there. So we did this. This was a repeat of S11 and D11 10 times. Here's our S11, that's this one. And let's get a B4, bicone 4, slide down. And then I just need to do a repeat of 5. There's 1, 2, there's 3, 4, and 5. Again, I want to add that extra S11 after the 5. And then bicone. And then we can add the big bicone, smaller one, and a turning bead. Our turning bead's always going to be that S11. All right. So I'm just going to bring that, as you're working, your fringe starts to get in the way. You can always just kind of just shuffle it to the side just a little bit so that you don't tangle. And let's skip the last bead. And again, let's just go all the way up through all of those. Almost made it. And just double check. I'm going to pick that up and make sure none of those beads are hanging down, so you know your needle got through all of them. And then back up here at the top, we'll repeat right through here. And I'm just going slow, making sure I don't puncture my thread. There we are. Okay, so it's still loose. We got a little loop here. I'm going to pinch that bottom turning bead and then just pull it through. When you pull it through, you get really good tension. And now all we got to do is weave in, and we're done. Putting on the ear wire is all we have left to do. So just go through a few beads. If you feel like it needs it, you can head back up here and reinforce your loop at the top. And if not, you can just do some turns. And I'll do one more turn. Kind of try to overlap where I was. Give that a spin. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's trim that right there. There's our earring. It's all set, and just got to put an ear wire on there. So super easy. I'm going to grab one of those stainless ear wires that I had out. And you could use, like, for example, on my green one, I think I might use gold on that one. These come in 18 karat gold as well. They also come in sterling. If you prefer to have a sterling silver, you can really level up your design with that. And let's get some chain nose. And all of these ear wires, they have a opening, and the opening is facing the inside. So the hook facing side. You can see there's a little seam right there. And we're just going to open that seam in a lateral motion. So from above, it looks like this. You just want to turn your plier just a little bit like that to get that to open. And I opened it kind of wide. I might even go a little wider because it's got to have seed beads go through it. This design doesn't have a front or a back, so you don't have to really sweat that. You just put it on. There you go. And it should just hang right in the center of those two beads, and you've got yourself a beautiful earring. And if you want, you could make a whole rainbow. I was thinking, like, it would be so cool if I was doing a booth. I would put one of every color. I would do the whole rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, all the way up, and just do a whole like little ombre. And then I would have some crystal, and I would definitely do a pair in black for like Halloween. And I'd have some different shades of red. I would want to do like a pink, and then also more of a magenta, and kind of just a lot of cool things going on there. But yeah, so let me bring that last one over. I lost it somewhere. It was up here. This is a stash buster for sure. And so this is just one recipe. And if you like this and you want to see more like this, I have buried in a notebook somewhere in my house, I have like 10 of these. I gotta find it. But at one point I was really like having like a fringe, like just total party, and I just did a bunch. And so I have a bunch of things like that. They're just graphs that just show, hey, this is like one style of fringe, and they're just my little recipes for how to use up beads and use up different colors and things like that.
Danielle,
Yeah.
I love how you described it as a recipe for colors, and you're great on time. For the people who are doing fringe for the first time, I think it was Amy who asked the question that everyone asks. Sometimes she does the fringe and there ends up being string at the top visible, and sometimes she does it and the fringe curls. So, any tips on tension for the gang?
Yeah, definitely. So I know what you're talking about. So sometimes you end up with a gap here at the top that will show in between where your base is and where your fringe strand starts.
That's
And
the one.
yeah, that's the one. It's a combination of two things. Um, thread will stretch over time. And so your design might look perfect today and you'll wear it for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden you'll see all over time, it'll stretch. The good news is that this thread doesn't do that. It's not one that requires pre-stretching. A lot of the nylons can also boast that as a feature. So that's one. And the other is when we were doing our pull, through, and this is more of an answer to the curling question. Curling happens when you're just going too crazy with pulling too tight. So if I pull really tight, it's going to get some sway to it. It's not going to flow. I can even make it just, and in some designs, it'll do even more than curl. It'll kind of like make a wave. But one way to make it not do that is after you finish one strand row and you've done your turn, if you roll the beads like this, not only does it hide your turn, but it loosens up the tension just a little bit. You don't want to loosen it too much, but there's kind of a Goldilocks effect there. But yeah, I know what you mean. And it's definitely something that I admire in some of I buy a lot of fringe designs from other designers just because I like them, and I get them and I'm like, whoa, how'd you do that? Because there's never a gap. And so there's definitely a hand to it. There's a finesse to it, like with knitting and crochet and all that stuff here. Over time, you just kind of develop that feeling for that perfect tension, and you'll get there. But hopefully those 2 tips will help. Yeah, that was a great question. Any other questions like that or something else I can help with?
No, those were the ones I saved for you.
Cool.
Someone just wanted one more tip on how you use the pliers to open the hole at the
Oh,
top
yeah.
a little bit.
Oh, you mean the how to make it pop?
Yep, Cindy already answered that question,
Yeah.
but
So
if you can just do a quick visual so that they already have it ready for the weekend.
yeah, you'll want to grab any kind of your round nose pliers are the best because they're round all the way around. But even if it's chain nose, you just use your rounded side. So here's a round nose version. You see I'm just popping them on there like that. And you really only need to do this if you're gonna photograph it without the ear wire. I know a lot of the designers that photograph their stuff will do it before the ear wire's on because it can lay really gorgeous in an overlay with like flowers around it and stuff like that. So that's one way to make that look perfect for that photograph. And then once you get the ear wire on there, the ear wire will do the job of holding that loop for you. It kind of just it distributes the weight right at the center. And the only other tip for that loop at the top, at least 3 passes, especially if you're using the GoodThread. Wildfire, you might only need 2 passes because it's pretty thick, but the more you fill up those beads, the less they're going to do the wobbly thing that one's doing there. Here's chain nose. If you're using chain nose have a flat inside and a rounded outside. So just put your flat side going that way. And you can use your chain nose if that's preferred. Just want to get them to look. Let me see if I can get it to stick on there so you can see it. Kind of like that. So the chain nose can do it too. Oh, and I see a question about, yeah, you can bring a thin strand back through and just weave into it, try to match the color. And it can be tricky. Maybe switch to a very small needle, like a size 12 beading needle. And then as you follow that thread path through, you can go down through the fringe strand and back up through it. If that's not working, you can always take a really good picture. You can even try to do maybe a little graph of their counts. It could take a while, but then you'll have a recipe, and you can rebuild it if you want to. Because some over time they're just going to do that. Some of them depends what thread was used and stuff like that. Oh, thanks, Doris. Yeah. So let's see. I could show next week. Next week we have macrame, so something a little different. This was another request that you guys had, was to see how to change your colors. And so this one was really fun to make. And I used a Czech glass bead strand, and all the beads I used, I also have some crystal in there. Those beads are in the handout if you like them. But I used 3 different colors of waxed polyester knotting cord. And I have a method that it's really intuitive. You'll be like, oh, that's easy when you see it. It's super easy. You just do a bunch of square knots and you hide tails of the transitioning strand inside the square knot. That's pretty much it. And there's a whole handout showing how that's done, and we'll demo that. And then we have a bunch of Valentine's stuff coming up. And so there's a little charm bracelet. This one is a brick stitch. So you guys are already expert brick stitchers now after today's class. So you'll be able to make these little hearts, and then that's just on beading wire with some pearls. Little classic design. I feel like this one, this is not just a February design. This can go year round. I'm going to be wearing this in the summer. Wouldn't that also make a really cool anklet? It'd be a really fun one. And I'm sure we'll do lots of other little brick stitch, patterns that you can turn into charms. So this will give you that concept. And then after that, we have some crystal red angle weave. This one is a necklace version. So I just connected those into 2 hearts. That could become a whole length bracelet if you wanted it to. And then there's an earring version, which is really cute. And for the earring version, you just need 1 heart and then just some chain. Right now, I'm noticing a trend for just chain jewelry. That seems to be like really popular right now. So this is going to kind of ride that way, where there's a little bit of something at the bottom, but it's essentially we're just getting some chain on there. And that looks really fun. This one is really fun to make, and it's fast too. And that's on Wildfire. Both of these are on Wildfire. And then switching back to GoodThread for some springtime stuff. So this one is really fun for spring. There's a lot going on there. It's all one concept, and you'll be able to do all the designs just learning one skill. This is lengthwise peyote. So if you try with a focal first, get the feeling for it and see if you like it. If you really enjoy doing that, there is a version that's full length that you can do. And so it's peyote stitch, but it's worked this way, back and forth. And then there is also more color inspiration. You can do some different colors. And there's a bonus pattern in the handout for some earrings. And it is a different pattern. It does like a little weave around with the leaves. So this is a little more advanced, but once you've done this, if you feel like you want more, you can try making one of these, and they definitely will like lead to more ideas too. You can also just make a pendant. You can switch up your colors. This one doesn't have its chain yet. I'm still gonna put some chain, and I might put a little charm. I was thinking that would be actually really cute. That could be an earring too. So that's it. That's all we've got so far on the website. And then gosh, it's almost, we need March now, right? How do these things happen? But time is going really fast. I don't know if it's true for you guys, but for me, it's just really speeding by. So I cannot believe how fast time is going. If you want to share your work with us, post your designs and share. We're at hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag John Bead. And then we also have a Facebook group, and we have a really growing community where we cheer each other on and share our work there too. And so you can find that best way to find that is go to blog.johnbead.com. It's another place to find the PDFs. If you're looking at this class after and you're looking for those are all on that website. You can find them there. All right, I want to wish you a great weekend. Thank you for being here. Happy Friday and happy beading. Bye, guys.